These are my pieces. I just want to I just want to briefly talk about the Bakhtiari, and then show some video clips. And and the reason that it came to me is that I was seeing if People of the Wind was still on someplace.
If what?
People of the Wind, that documentary that was done in the 60s of the Bakhtiari migration.
They have like all the sheep that they're pulling across the river.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like unbelievable. I have a preview of it, which that'll be the first video clip. But what I happened on was a company in Iran set up to take people on migrations with Bakhtiaris. And it's got this Italian couple with a video cam who've signed up to migrate with the Bakhtiari, and I mean, okay, it's set up for tourists, but actually it's real Bakhtiari who keep sheep and
happens now?
and this happens now, yeah. It's like it's fairly recent.
Visas and stuff. That's amazing.
Well, Italian may be different than American.
Wait a minute. Cool. I could do that.
So I'm going to show a clip from that video too. But first I want to talk a little bit about why I so admire the Bakhtiari. They are one of the last nomadic tribes to keep the migration and to keep the old colors and to keep the traditional way of like weaving household goods. This is a salt bag, a Bakhtiari salt bag, a bag that they just used to carry salt in. Now it never got used because by this date they had figured out, oh, Europeans think this is cool stuff, so we'll sell them, make them and sell them, you know. But you look at the work that has gone into this as just this household item that they would carry with them. And that was the way Opie got started. He went to Shiraz and he went to the bazaar, and they had all of this Bakhtiari. Well, that was one of the main things he bought, these Bakhtiari camel bags that were this incredibly complex sumac weaving and just beautiful stuff for like, you know, $20. Because what are you going to do with a camel bag? You can't put it on the wall, you can't walk on the floor. It was just something that certain collectors were into. But that's the way his whole business got started, was buying Bakhtiari tribal pieces.
Which exact area were Bakhtiari from?
Bakhtiari are from the Zagros Mountains in southern Iran. And I'll show you the video with a map of where they are and what their migration pattern is. This picture back here, you see this picture back here? The women weaving, those are Bakhtiari women weaving this kind of rug. Now, whether they were migrating or not is another question, because they're fairly settled in villages, and it could be that some just weave, but the ones that go on migration are still. I mean, the fact is they still do that. You know, climb up the mountains with all these goats and stuff. What is interesting about them is you can see if you look at it in terms of a quarter of it, like just bisected in, you know, two ways, so you just look at 1/4 of it, you can see that it's a design that they're replicating in the 4 different quarters. It's the same design, but the fact is they're not doing it according to a cartoon. They're not doing it because some computer is telling them when to, or some piece of paper is telling them when to tie the knot. They have that pattern in their head, and it comes out different every time that they do it, so that you have, it's the same pattern, but the difference between one half and the other half, when you actually look at it, is really significant.
Just to clarify, so you said that it's basically the same group of people, but just one is settled and one is still not?
Yeah.
But they use the similar iconography.
Well, they have the same language, the same culture, the same outfits, the same jewelry. It's basically the same people, but they go, you know, they're being impacted by modern culture as well, and so if they can make they are really amazing weavers, and if they can make really good money weaving, it's probably a temptation because the migrations are hard as shit, and they could just buy wool from the people that migrate. It's hard to know. Among the people who are migrating presently, you don't see carpets of this quality. And in fact, they have part of this segment of when they're tourists in Bakhtiari, and so they go and see them making native handicrafts, and it's nothing of the quality that this is, but they're still hand spinning wool and weaving.
And getting the colors from the colors.
Well, that's the big problem, is the colors. It's like they've always liked bright colors. The brighter the better. So if you can make bright chemical colors, they'll go for those. That seems, for me, this is part of my whole thing with Oriental carpets. It's one of the big questions that it brings up is, why are old carpets so much better than new carpets? Now, there are many, many people, particularly dealers in new carpets, that say this is just some sort of cultural delusion, where you think old stuff is better than new stuff, because the new stuff is much better, and they'll explain why. But to me, there's just no question. When you look at newly woven rugs, no matter, even if they're getting the old colors right, and they've taken the design and put it into a computer and gotten people to hand weave it, they aren't the same as old ones. And that, to me, is a really bizarre phenomenon. What happened?
The intention. It's to make money now instead of like your dowry rug or whatever.
Well, that basically they were weaving these rugs to make money, and as people who could do that, the women were rich and powerful for the most part, because they were the weavers. They were very. That's why they would weave these very beautiful, intricate things as a dowry pieces to indicate to their husband how much they were worth. But the fact that it was in the tribal culture a totally female art, I find interesting too, because it has much more tolerance for the whimsical, and things looking like they're the same the first time you look at it, but when you look at it closely, they're really quite different. Like you split it in half here, and you can see they're doing the same thing, two flowers, but here they leave the insides out of the flowers. And then when you come down here, the way they connect these flowers are different, but there's the same elements, top and bottom. So you can see they're going from the same pattern in their head, but they're executing it differently according to whatever mood they're in or what they feel like, so that it looks so much more alive. And it's really, I think it's because it's more like a hallucination than something that's static that I find it so intriguing. There is, of course, because money involved and people make livings buying and selling these things, there is a great deal of fantasy that has been written down as tradition that you can find supporting any one of a number of those various pictures. And of course, when we got into the rug business, it was from reading In Search of the Miraculous, in which Gurdjieff insisted that carpets had a hidden esoteric language, that if you could read, you could understand the universe. And that was a big reason that people like us were interested in carpets, because it looks like they're trying to say something.
I should have bought the carpet.
And that's the one thing that I'll tell you about the rug business, is that there are always more better carpets.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, well, they'll show up. Something else will come along that you'll have a chance to buy that's much better than that. There is that big book, and that is a very interesting book. It's a big yellow book. Is it in that stack? It's like a coffee table book. It's a huge, fat book.
Does it have to?
It's about rugs, and it's about the symbolism in Turkish, like 15th century Turkish carpets woven by Sufis, and it's cool. It sounds like that. It's a famous book, and it's expensive, and it's hard to get. It's out of print, and I knew it was something that was needed. And I haven't read it straight through, but I've read enough of it that it's interesting, and it's worth reading for the questions you're asking, because it really does show examples of carpets and shows sacred geometry and what they might have been saying. And to answer your question, I think there were workshops in Turkey and Bukhara and places that were the centers of cultures that came before Islamic culture, where they had knowledge of geometry, and they used it in their art. And I think there were workshops of Sufi metaphysicians that did indeed design carpets that had a meaning and purpose, and were to communicate. I believe in that stuff. In reality, though, in terms of what's being woven even 100 years ago, I think most of it comes from people being really familiar with these designs and seeing, oh, that's really cool, and having it be absorbed into their culture, and then doing it not because they necessarily think about the metaphysics, but just it's a really cool design, and it's similar to what their mother did.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of it's coming from. And I also do think that they are seeing into another world when they see these patterns, that they have some sort of either hereditary or developed the ability to see the astral world, which is, from my experience, exactly this kind of thing, but constantly moving and changing with a kind of both symmetry and life that makes you feel that, yes, there is a world beyond this that's more interesting to look at. even slightly under influence of hallucinogens, if you really stare at something for a while, it like comes up and you start seeing patterns moving, like in temple carvings and oriental rugs. It really is a vision into what is that world? It's the world of the imagination, whatever that means, but it's some facility that we have to see something, a world that's more interesting visually, or at least a very different kind of visual aesthetic than this world. And I think those cultures are more in touch with that. Maybe because they grow hashish and opium, I'm not sure. This is my bedroom carpet. It's also one of my favorite carpets, and you can see.
Why is there the color? Why are the colors?
Because that's called a barrage. They'll start with one color and they'll find, oh boy, they've got a great, and they buy all they've got. But the fact is, they don't have enough to do the whole carpet, so they'll have to buy a different color lot. And you'll see it in the carpet where the lots change. And sometimes the color changes within the lot.
Yeah.
This carpet and the other carpet, I wonder if they were cheap enough for me to buy them because of how distorted the center medallion is.
Yeah.
It's clear that, the person that did the first half of the carpet decided to do it differently the second half. So you compare it up and down, and there are certain definite small differences. Although the overall pattern is exactly the same, and it looks like it's very symmetrical when you first look at it.
Or the mother did the first half
Yeah,
and said, now copy this.
Yeah.
Apprentice or something.
Yeah, and the daughter wanted to express her own individual, or it just sort of flows like that. To me, it's one of the more interesting mystery is the difference between all the different things that are different in between the four sections of a carpet. Now, like that carpet there, also Bakhtiari, that's a fairly new carpet. I would bet that that's not 40 years old. But they still are able to, if you look at it closely and you see it looks uniform, but then you start seeing these little oddities between the top and the bottom and the left and the right, where they stick in different things, which means, oh, it's still being woven by people who have this picture in their minds that they're executing by tying single knots in a row.
So one on the screen, do you think all those colors are natural?
Yes. They kept their colors. They may still be using natural colors. I don't know. The Bakhtiari, for some reason, didn't go to the synthetic colors, and most of the colors for the carpets of that age are both vegetable and don't run or fade.
So what are the signatures of it being a Bakhtiari rug? Is it the border, how it has?
It's the border, certain borders. It's the you flip it over in the back, and there's certain kind of weft colors that some people use, certain ways to finish it that certain tribe used, and oftentimes it's a certain kind of pattern that it's hard to define exactly, but it's familiar from carpet to carpet. Like in these Bakhtiari carpets like this, there's all of these arbovita. You know, that one outside that I use, this sun, it's also got these little sections of arbovita, and it's a garden carpet, and they have a certain way of putting certain images in these gardens so they can stop in the middle of the desert and spread it out, be in a garden.
You have relationships with your rugs?
Yes. To me, they're totemic objects. They're like, maybe more than a goldfish, you know. Not as much as a dog or a cat, but there's something there that you have an ongoing exchange with.
Do you ever feel guilty that you have too many, that you can't maintain all your relationships?
Yes, I do feel guilty about it. Especially, I have the aching paranoia that I'm going to pull one out and it's going to be eaten up by moths, and I'll have ended its life when it was an incredible work of art, and I was too selfish to do something other than roll it up. I used to have a practice of giving a girlfriend a really good rug so she would remember me, and I still think of some of those rugs, actually. There weren't that many, but there's one in particular that I really was such a cool rug. I really miss it.
You miss it more than the girlfriend?
No, actually, I miss the girlfriend more.
Oh wow! What a testament to both.
Oh,
of
she
them.
was a really good girlfriend.